Welcome to Walking Through Lent Together, a production of Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Services, where we talk to interesting people about some of the themes of Lent on these Tuesdays in Lent. I'm Pastor Eric Schaefer, your host, and I am the pastor in residence for Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service, for LIRS. And today we're so grateful to have as our guest Roberto Lara. Roberto wears a number of hats in the ELCA for his profession. He is the assistant to the bishop in the Lutheran Church's Metro New York Synod office in New York City. He also serves as a volunteer as the president of the ELCA's Latino Association and has many other interests and duties. So welcome, Eduardo. Eduardo, thank you for coming with us today.
No, thank you, Pastor Eric, for having me here. It is such an honor to be part of these conversations.
So some of our viewers don't know you, and some of them do, I'm sure, but they may not know much about what you're doing. So tell us a little bit about your work for the Metropolitan New York Synod.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm serving in different capacities in the ELCA. One of them is I'm assistant to the bishop for communications and development in the Metro New York Synod. As you mentioned, I have the privilege of serving as the president of the Latino Ministries Association of the ELCA. And interestingly, I'm originally from Mexico, and I was Catholic for almost the first 2 decades of my life. And then I was introduced to the Lutheran Church by my partner, Christopher Vergara. And little by little, I got more and more involved in the Lutheran Church to the point that last year I was nominated and ended up being the runner-up for the office of the vice president of the ELCA, which I was very honored to even be nominated. But, I don't know how I ended it there, and I don't know how I was getting more and more involved. Clearly, it's a reflection of my commitment to the mission of the Lutheran Church.
Thank you. That's wonderful. So, as president of the Latino Association in our church, what sort of things do you do with that organization?
Yeah, well, I was elected as part of the board in 2019. And unfortunately, this board really had to deal with a lot of really difficult situations, and most of our work was related to crisis management, starting with the pandemic that disproportionately affected Latinx communities in our church. Yes. We saw our pastors really suffering and struggling to keep the communities together, but also to keep them safe, to provide resources to them, to really empower them and accompany them. It was a very difficult moment. And, after that, when we're finally exiting that crisis, we sort of had to be very vocal in public, starting in 2021, against some decisions of our church that are heavily rooted in white supremacy and racism. And we saw the resistance of the institution, which we are all part of. We saw a resistance in ourselves to change, and we had to be very vocal about it. And thankfully, I think change is coming, and we're moving forward, and we're becoming a better church, and we're reflecting what the gospel is calling us to do. But yeah, as part of my term as a member first of the board, and then as the president of the Latino Ministries Association, was full of crisis management, and a lot of emotions, trying to accompany our pastors and our lay leaders.
Wonderful. I'm glad you're there to do that at this point in our church's life, Roberto. Thank you. Thank you for that service. But now it's interesting. You picked the theme of empowerment to talk about, and yet, as you just described, you often represent people who are left out of power. That's an interesting contrast, isn't it?
It is. And I selected this theme precisely because something that I haven't experienced in my time serving at the association is this tendency of the church, and not only the ELCA. I've seen this across multiple denominations and other faiths even. But I feel that sometimes the field of religion tend to look down at the poor, at the little ones, at the marginalized, historically marginalized communities. We take this stand, this superior position. I'm here to help you, sort of like I'm here to save you. I'm your savior. And I feel that really is an opposition, a clear opposition to what the gospel is actually calling us to do. And when we approach communities, historically marginalized communities, we approach them from this higher level position where we picture ourselves as the center figure, as Jesus, and they are the community around us. But in fact, something that I would like to challenge our denomination and other denominations, all Lutherans to do, is to try to approach it from a place of empowerment, of accompaniment. We are here with you because by serving you, you're also changing my life for good. And that's a challenge I would like us to be more serious about. There are a lot of conversations about it, and I appreciate that, and I would like to keep that image in front of us when we're approaching communities in need.
Great, Roberto, thank you. So in the ELCA, a number of our Spanish-speaking members are immigrants. Some first and second generation, some have been here for many generations. I think we have to say that. So that kind of experience would make you a natural to be involved in an organization like Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service, of course.
Definitely.
Have you been down to the southern border? I know that many members of the organization have been working there tirelessly. Can you say a little bit more about our work on the southern border as a church, and your feelings about what's going on the southern border of our country?
No, absolutely. I've been involved in several efforts. Actually, my partner and I became guardians of a migrant minor several years ago. He was already a teenager. He's an adult now. A wonderful person. His name is Jose. We're very proud of him. I mean, it was difficult. He was a teenager, so that wasn't like an easy journey. But we're very happy. We're family. And I learned about those programs through the work of the Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Services in collaboration with our own programs in the ELCA, including Amparo. And that was a very transformative experience for me, because being an immigrant, I thought that I knew how difficult the system is, that I knew the difficulties of why people is trying to come to the United States. But when I met Jose, he really transformed the way I see my own advocacy work related to immigration. And I realized how much more I needed to learn. Jose went through really difficult situation, extremely challenging environments. He didn't have access to education his entire life. Makes you question the system, right? Because the resistance that we get all the time is like, if you're an immigrant and you were able to get documentation, everyone can do it. But I was extremely privileged. I had access to education. I had access to financial resources. I didn't have the language at that time, but still, I had open doors available to me. Jose didn't have that. And, thanks to my relationship with him, people always said, like, how lucky is Jose to have you and Christopher, my partner, and that you are trying to provide for him. But actually, I'm the lucky one, because my personal life, my professional life, my approach to advocacy is way more relevant because I got a lot of knowledge from Jose and from his personal experience. And that has been just invaluable. And yeah, this is the idea of empowerment, right? Accompaniment. Like, thanks to him, I'm better in every possible aspect in my life.
And you know this from your life, Roberto, that so many people say that who are in help and professions that, sure, I helped somebody, but so much help, I became such a better person through this. If we can do anything at LIRS, it's connecting people to immigrant people, to refugee people, and we can all learn so much about each other together.
I definitely agree with that. I think we tend to see immigrants and immigration as this abstract entity. And when you put people like Americans in front of immigrants and you see the human side of the immigrant and you met them by name and you met their families and you learn their story and their reasons to immigrate, like, is when you really make a difference. You make a connection, you see them as human again. And I think that is helpful to also helping us understand what the gospel is calling us to do with immigrants.
Exactly right. Exactly right. If any of our viewers want to find out more about how you can be involved in the issues of immigration and refugees, we have the easiest website to remember, lirs.org. And there you can find out about our programs and find out how you might be involved in them locally. And perhaps most importantly, you can sign up for our newsletter and you can be kept in our electronic newsletter. You can be kept informed of all that's going on within the church and society about immigration and refugees. As our time's drawing to a close here, Roberto, do you have any final thoughts to share with our viewers today about empowerment or Lent or anything else today? Yeah,
one of my favorite texts to read, and I do that in Lent all the time, is, if you don't mind me sharing, it's a text called "We Sing Mary's Song" by Bonnie Jensen. Is related to the Lady of Guadalupe. I don't know if you, Pastor Eric, are familiar with the Lady of Guadalupe, but she's this religious figure that Latino Lutherans were embracing more and more. And she is considered the first Mexican because it's a religious symbol that clearly shows a mixture of our Aztec or Mexica identities, but also the identities of the Catholicism that was brought to Latin America by Spain. But one of her points is, each time we sing Mary's song, we are called to believe once again that God has deep regard for the lowly, the hungry, the poor, the little ones. And that's precisely what the Lady of Guadalupe did. She showed to Juan Diego, who was this indigenous person in Mexico, to a poor, lowly little one. And I think when we approach our charity work, our advocacy work, we should use the Lady of Guadalupe as an example. Like, we are here to accompany the lowly, the poor, because they are regarded by God as the good people that they are, instead of placing ourselves in a more central, superior figure. And that will really transform our efforts and ally them even more with what the gospel is calling us to do.
Great, great. So it is empowerment through accompaniment, isn't it, really, when you think about it?
Empowerment through accompaniment. I love that. Yes.
That's perfect. Thank you. All right. Well, this has been Walking Through Lent Together, a 5-week series on Lenten themes produced by Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Service. My name is Pastor Eric Schaefer, the pastor in residence. Our guest is Roberto Lara, who is assistant to the bishop in the ELCA's Metro New York Synod and also the president of the ELCA Latino Association. Thank you, Roberto, for being with us today.
No, thank you. I appreciate the invitation.
This is the last of these for this season, but I'm sure we'll be doing it again sometime. So to all of our viewers, a blessed Lent and a wonderful Holy Week and a celebrative Easter. God bless you all. Thank you for being with us. Goodbye today.